The Fort Nelson First Nation is a vibrant community of Dene and Cree people who have lived in northeastern British Columbia since time immemorial. Our community holds a deep-rooted connection to this land, which has developed over generations. Our ancestors formed a special relationship with the caribou, which they depended on for their survival. Yet, over the last several decades, we have witnessed a dramatic decline in the caribou populations. Disturbances such as seismic lines, winter access roads, and pipelines have spread through our forests, increasing predator access to caribou habitat and predation on caribou. As the caribou disappear, our concern grows that other species will follow unless there is a substantial healing to the land. The scale of disturbances we are faced with recovering is immense. There are many types of linear features crisscrossing through our territory, changing species relationships and our relationships to the land. So, the Fort Nelson First Nation is taking restoration into our own hands, embracing both Indigenous and Western knowledge to guide the ways we control, manage, and protect our territory. By honoring our Indigenous law of sharing knowledge, the Fort Nelson First Nation will be providing a series of guides on how to conduct a caribou habitat restoration program. Linear restoration programs aim to return disturbed lands back to a less impacted state. Restoration programs include three main phases: planning, implementation, and monitoring. In this episode, we will discuss the 5 steps of the scouting process. Scouting is a key part of the planning phase, ensuring restoration work is effective, efficient, and safe. The first step of scouting is to narrow down the area of focus. Disturbed landscapes may have thousands of kilometers of linear features, so the restoration team must decide which areas to restore first and how those fit into larger restoration plans for the future. The team starts by identifying favorable caribou habitat and priority areas requested by the community. Large obstacles such as rivers and fens and existing access routes are also considered. These principal features help the team to determine in which season and with what equipment an area will need to be recovered. The team must then determine which areas can and cannot be restored based on legislative constraints. Restoration work may interfere with other groups' protected land rights, dispositions, and access, so the team must connect with rights holders, stakeholders, and other land users to better understand their needs. These constraints mean some features cannot be restored, and thus it may be less beneficial to restore some areas or regions, while others may require greater collaboration with the disposition holders. After identifying the area of focus, the next step is to identify disturbances within that area that are candidates for restoration. This work is done primarily using GIS and remote sensing data, as well as other information gathered directly from land users. There are many factors to consider when determining which linear features on the land to restore. What are the key features of the disturbance, such as location, type, and current state? Is the habitat suitable for restoration? Is the area too wet to support tree cover? Are there any barriers to access, such as difficult water crossings? And lastly, are there any active dispositions or land rights that might restrict access or certain activities, like the use of heavy equipment? Once the restoration team has determined the linear disturbances they are interested in restoring, it's then time to get in the air to scout the candidate disturbances in the field. GIS data layers provide useful information, but images have limited resolution and may be out of date. Scouting from the air provides real-time information that is essential for the planning process, such as, what is the status of vegetation? Are there enough trees close to the line to be used for transplant? And are there indications wildlife are using the linear disturbance? If so, should it be higher priority for restoration? Once the first trip to the field is complete, the team will then use the information gathered to refine and reassess. prioritizing which lands to tackle and in what order. Planning restoration work is an iterative process requiring the team to continuously refine their planning and make adjustments. For complex landscapes or large projects, many iterations of mapping and scouting may be needed to reach a final restoration plan. Questions to consider during this reassessment include: are there areas that need to be restored earlier or later in the process to preserve access? Are there difficult to access areas that may require fly-in crews? Which point of entry and route should the crews take to access disturbances? It is also important to keep in mind that some habitat attributes and access constraints aren't present in every season, so it's important to observe the area repeatedly during different times of the year. In the final step of the scouting process, the team heads out to the selected linear features for a final safety scout before the implementation phase begins. This final scout, conducted in the winter on snowmobile, identifies safety concerns not seen previously from the air. The snowmobiles also help to pack down snow and drive frost deeper into the ground, which will facilitate equipment transport during the implementation stage. With the scouting process complete, restoration work on the ground can finally begin. It is up to a team of experts to restore the lines, in hopes that successful habitat restoration will allow caribou to thrive on the land once again.